Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation Show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome to our Monday after dinner show, and this is our second show of our Memorial Week shows, and we got a great guest tonight, a mentor of mine, a leader that I had the honor to serve with, and he's going to be great on the show, and he's going to tell us some great stories. As we're going through this week, as you know, I'm reading off the names of those who we lost, of random months, random years. Tonight, I spun the wheel and came up with October of 2017. In October 2017, we lost the following service members: Army Chief Warrant Officer Jacob M. Sims, Army Staff Sergeant Brian C. Black, Army Staff Sergeant Jeremiah W. Johnson, Army Sergeant LaDavid T. Johnson, Army Staff Sergeant Dustin M. Wright, Army Specialist Alexander W. Missildine. Rest easy, brothers, until Valhalla. And tonight, like I said, I have a good one. Served 31 years in the United States Army. Hails from Minnesota. Huge Minnesota sports fan. If you look on his Facebook, you'll see Skull Vikings, Go Gophers, every Minnesota team. He's on it. He served all over the world. He's continued to serve our country now by helping with the training of soldiers on emerging threats. He has 10 grandchildren now. I think when I left him, he only had maybe 5 or 4 or 5, maybe 6 tops. But now, like we said, we talk in the green room, he has birthday season. Most people have 4 seasons. He has 5 now with birthday season, which just starts now all the way through December. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Command Sergeant Major retired, Harold Reynolds. Hoorah, kill. Welcome.
Hey, hoorah, kill. What's going on, Rich?
It's awesome to have you here. I was so glad when I reached out to you, you had the time to do this, because I know you're a lot more busy than I am, especially as I read down there and I seen now we're up to 10 grandchildren. So I know that's a lot of your time as well. And it was great to serve with you and have Erica as a mentor to our wives, and then go on retreats with y'all and learn more about you as a human, not just as the guy who stood up in front of us and gave us safety briefs on the weekends, or like the first time I really got to talk to you in Afghanistan after we took the shovels from the local leaders in the little area outside of Fob Wilson that we found digging. And you told me, hey, brother, give it back. We don't want to make another terrorist. I said, Roger that, hoorah, kill. And I went right about my business. I learned my lesson, and we did our job. So it's great to have you here.
I appreciate that. And hey, it is my honor and humbled to be able to serve with soldiers, leaders, and officers all alike, and of course you amongst them. In conversations, in passing, you may not know exactly how much they affect or impact somebody until later on, and that's really, really cool, man.
And I just remember again, you had me in your office, and I seen your only office I knew that had pictures of your family while in theater. So I seen your daughters. So he's not gonna be too mean. It's good. He has daughters, so he ain't gonna be mean to me. It's good. He'll just talk to me. But the way he told me, it was like a dad telling me something. It just made you feel bad about your decisions, your life decisions. Go out and change it. All right.
Right. Make good decisions.
Thanks, Sergeant Major. Awesome. Rock on. So like I told you in the green room, I'm only going to tell a little bit about you. I'm going to let you tell a little more about you. So if you don't mind, tell us a little more about you, from as far back as you want to go to what led you to the Army and how we got to where we are now.
Sure. Man, and Rich knows this, to all of you, of course, welcome. But to all of you that are listening, I hate talking about myself. It just bothers me. But because Rich asked me to, I will dive in a little bit. So I'm from a small farm town in Minnesota called Clark's Grove, and yes, it's as small as it sounds. I think while we were there, living there's about 354 population, right? And that doesn't include the cows, but I mean, so while I was there, I looked at what I wanted for my family, right? When I had a family, what opportunities were going to be available to me in the town, in the area that I was living in. And to me, I didn't see exactly what I wanted, but I didn't, which is funny because I didn't know what I wanted, right? Like most people, right? So hey, the back, what was the Army slogan? Army, it's a great place to start, right? So I was like, hey, why not? And then and then it's like, well, hey, why don't you want to be, airborne? I was like, well, I don't know what that is, but all right, I'll do that too then, right? So anyway, I joined the Army in 1986. Went through OSED, all that good stuff at Fort Leonard as a combat engineer, and then went to Benning Jump School, and then my first station was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, right? So I am a Bragg baby to my core, right? and had some phenomenal leaders. To me, some of those are what set me on the path, right? And so anyway, I became a squad leader, and once you put stripes on, right? Once you become a leader, not that you're not as a specialist or a PFC or whatever, you have those informer leaders, of course, but I'm saying, once you really put those stripes on, whether it's a corporal or sergeant, and you're a non-commissioned officer, that things change, man. It's all about the soldier, right? Not necessarily about yourself, although you still have to maintain yourself. Anyway, I just remember going on this jump, right? And this first time I'm a squad leader, going on this, after mission, and all my people are ready, and we're getting there to get after it, and came time to be JMPI'd, right? And I see my squad going to this jump master to get JMPI'd, and I don't know, man, Rich, I'm telling you, man, it hurt me to my core, man. And like, those are my soldiers, man. That's my responsibility.
Right.
So you know what I did? I went to jump master school. Like I'm telling you, man, within weeks, I was in jump master school. Passed, of course, came back, and again, that's just how I believe my career went. From that glimpse, if you will, of how I thought my duty and responsibilities to my soldiers were, through the ranks, I was a Sapper leader course instructor. Man, you talk about a fun job. but anyway, I was a Sapper leader course instructor. I went to Ranger school. I went to Sapper school. I went to a bunch of schools, right? And all of that knowledge, though, it did me no good unless I gave it to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, I kind of kept that mentality. I became a platoon sergeant, and then of course first sergeant, and then a sergeant major. I think some of what I claim to fame, right, is that I was a combat leader, and what I mean by that is that I deployed in combat as a squad leader, a platoon sergeant, a first sergeant, and a command sergeant major, and I learned from each one of those deployments and from the units that I was with, to be able to, in my opinion, help others to do better than I did. And that's really, I think, the goal of all of us. Yeah, I got some medals and some other stuff, but it's all cool. Yay to me.
Yay,
but the and I had this question asked of me. It's like, what's your greatest accomplishment other than my loving wife, of course, right? But to me, my greatest accomplishment is the people that I've been able to influence and impact, and watching them succeed. To me, there's no greater achievement than that. And then that's really just a little bit about myself, brother. Other than, hey, I got 6 kids, 10 grandkids. I am grateful and thankful for all that I have, and I have the opportunity to give back to an organization that has given me and my family so much, to be able to raise all of them in a manner in which we wanted to, and that's the United States Army. So.
Heck yeah. And another memory came to mind when you were talking about leading in combat. 2012 in Kunar, you were with us, Colonel Williams. Mm-hmm. We had just got back to Cop Fortress we got ambushed in Debogah Valley. We're refitting our vehicle, and here comes you and Colonel Williams on the back of an MATV with the SF dudes standing in. Colonel Williams is behind the minigun. You're standing up in the back. And I said, that's our leaders right there. They're leading from the front right there, standing up in the back of that damn vehicle, hanging out and leading from the front. So that was another great memory that popped in my mind right there.
maybe not the smartest decision, but it was
awesome.
Hey man, when you gotta go, you gotta go. You know the deal.
Heck yeah. And that was the area to do it, as you know, and I'm sure you're going to talk about some of the people that we met there and are no longer with us on this. So I'll let you reach back in there, and we talked in the green room about all the guys and gals that we served with and they're no longer with us. And I know you have a long list, but let's talk about a few or as many as you want to talk about tonight.
Sure. And of course, I totally appreciate the opportunity. And like we talked about earlier, about, hey, it's important to remember them, right? What they've done, and then in some cases, how they impact and influence you and what you do from that point forward. My first loss as I was a first sergeant, Sergeant John Osmolsky in Iraq in 2008. I had already redeployed, and he was my first casualty. And again, some of these casualties, these KIs, these heroes, man, I wasn't there with them, and that sometimes bothers me that I wasn't there, right? But at the same time, I know that we as an organization prepared them in the best manner and way that we could. The one thing about John Osmolsky, man, is curly-haired cat, man, just full of life, right?
Right.
That's the one thing that I take away from him. He was full of life, and he was kind of a jokester too, right? But he had some really deep conversations, and those that know him know what I'm talking about. But yeah, he was a great guy, man. And again, it's just those those memories and from the first deployment that I had as a squad leader, my number one, and it didn't change when I was a sergeant major. The number one worry that I had, the number one question in my mind when we deployed was, did I train them enough, right? Yep. Did we do all the training that was necessary to bring them home? And in most cases, the answer was yes, right? But you don't know until you're there going through it, right?
Right.
And so 2010, right? 2010 was man, it was relentless.
Yes.
It was absolutely relentless. And as you know, deploying with Strike,
Yeah.
2nd Brigade, 101st. Well, prior to that, Sergeant First Class Jason Hickman, he was killed in Afghanistan in 2010. Now, John Osmolsky, he was with the 82nd, so he was out of my company. Sergeant Hickman, he was a team leader for me in that company as a first sergeant. He was with 25th ID at the time of when he was killed. But Hickman was man, he was country with a K. You know what I'm saying? This dude was, I mean, hey, he was hoorah kill to his heart. Don't get me wrong. This guy was a sapper through and through. But you talk about, man, he was deep south, drawl and all, but would dude would do anything for you, right? And just relentless in mission. It was getting done. You couldn't tell him that he couldn't do something.
Right.
You just said, okay, I need you to do this, and just step back. So Sergeant Hickman. Next was Sergeant Nathan Cox. This guy, he loves some Southern comfort. This is terrible. It's like, I don't know. I don't understand why.
Sweet whiskey.
Yes, and so he was a combat engineer again, but he transitioned again. He was a team member when I was a first sergeant. He was a specialist at the time, and so Nathan Cox became a medic. And so he transitioned from being a combat engineer to a medic, and in 2010 he was with the 101st, and that's when he was KIA. But he was one of those guys that was kind of quiet, but underneath there is an underlying current, right? I mean, this dude was like, what is he up to? He had that look, right? Like,
what's that next thing?
You know what I'm saying? You couldn't catch him in doing it, but he did it. Right. But yeah, and of course there was never a dull moment in the barracks with that guy. So yeah, so Nathan Cox was one. And then we get to our own battalion, right, in 2010. Staff Sergeant James Hunter was the very first, for me, casualty in the unit that I was in, right? And of course, unfortunately for me, I didn't really know James that well, Staff Sergeant Hunter, excuse me, because he had deployed forward, right? He was
Right.
already in country when we got there, and I remember being in the RSOI, right, the heat trainer, right,
Oh,
getting ready to do the rollover stuff, right, and Colonel Preble gives me a call and he's like, "Hey man, I need you to get to the talk." And I was like, "Sir, I'm in training. You know, I have to get these things checked off so I can move forward." And he's like, "Yes, I understand that, but I think they'll understand based on what we had going on." And I was like, "Okay," and got there, and that's when we found out that Staff Sergeant Hunter had stepped on IED, and then of course. Here's a lesson in that, though, for me, right? And this is a lesson that I passed on to other leaders. It's something that you don't want to do in training. You don't want to think about in training, but it's important to understand what the memorial SOP is and what it is with the unit that you're supporting or the supported, right?
Right.
What are their methods? Because when an incident happens, that's not the time for you to dig through the SOP to try to figure it out.
Right.
Thankfully, we were at Kandahar. We had a lot of great units and help and just support for that particular incident. And you know, James was out there doing what he did best, man. He was a PAO. He was out there covering the story. He was making sure that the soldiers and leaders' voices were being heard at what they were doing, right? And of course, Padula, right? He
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He hoorah kill, man. He took up those reins, man, and he didn't want to do it, but he had to. And Staff Sergeant Hunter trained him to do that.
Yes.
And Padula truly honored him when he stepped forward.
And Staff Sergeant Hunter was also the first PAO killed in GWAT, in all of GWAT. He was the first PAO we lost. So that's a horrible milestone, but it is a milestone that happened on that day, June 18th, 2010.
Absolutely. And then you fast forward our deployment and Specialist Andrew Castro, right?
Yes.
So old AJ, he's hooking and jabbing out there with his MI self, right?
Yep.
And doing what soldiers do, right? He wasn't out there collecting. He wasn't out there doing other intelligence sourcing and stuff. He was a rifleman, man.
Yep.
He was out there getting after the enemy because that's what the situation called for, and that's how he ended up being killed. But again, I say that in the manner because Andrew was the type of soldier that you just had to let him know what you needed him to do, and he did that. If you needed him to be a soldier, he'd be a soldier. If you needed him to be a counselor, he would have been a counselor, right? I mean, he was just that kind of soldier that he wanted to do the best for his leaders in any possible capacity that he could.
And he was one of the first young men I met when I got to, because I remember I met you guys over there. So I was in Rear D as a Sergeant First Class, and he was one of my guys in Rear D, and we went through medic training together. We went to rifle training together. And I sent him on the plane right before he was on the flight just before me with Staff Sergeant Hubbard. And when he got on that plane, that's what that picture is of him there. He was still a little tipsy, as we like to call it at that time.
Right.
And I was like, I said, man, you can't be that drunk getting on the airplane, but it's a long flight. You'll sober up, bro. I said, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. He said, yeah, Sergeant, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And of course, I never got to see him again.
Yep. It was a hard fight out there.
Yeah.
With field artillery, man. They was out there getting it for sure. And then of course the one that hits home, I know is Sergeant Michael Beckerman, right? And when I hear his name, it's all about being a combat engineer, because that's what he wanted to do more than anything.
Yes.
He wanted to be doing what he came in the Army to do. He wanted to be out in front, leading soldiers. And it was hard for me to honestly to let him go, right?
Yep.
Because I wanted him to stay where he was and be a part of that force protection, but at the same time, I know we needed him out in front, out on the lines, and there was no better person that I could think of to take the reins, to get out there and get after it, which I knew he was going to do.
And like you said, he bled Sapper. He had the red blood, the red and white Sapper coming at him. And the first day I met him and Whamoff, I called him Pigpen and Pigpen too, because they were up there in ECP3 there trying to build that tower in the dust bowl there. And Maggie's on right now. Hey Maggie.
Hey Maggie.
I think she was there visiting because it was their anniversary, and they both walked up and they were just covered from head to toe in moon dust. I say, who are you two? And I was with First Sergeant Ward. He's like, these are your two of your team leaders. I said, these are my team leaders. It's like, holy crap, you boys that build this, where's your soldiers? And they're watching us build. I said, get in there and build with them. And the both of them, they was hard chargers, and he always had something else to say when you told him to do something. But Soren, I think we should do it this way. Soren, I think we should build it that way. He was, and then of course he was. I think he was watching Desperate Housewives or something was the show. He'd watch in the hooch at night. Man, you got to shut that crap off. But now I know after we lost him, I wished I could still hear it. But obviously, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, it is, and then again with Maggie on, just trying to be with her. For her in that instance, it's hard. How do you do that? Nothing prepares you for that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think that's something as a leader you went through it way more than I did probably, but way more than I had to. Even one time is hard enough, but you think you know what everything you're supposed to do at that point, and it's a whirlwind when it happens. And trying to keep everyone else together and keep your own crap together at that same time.
Yeah,
it's very difficult.
It is, and just because not just because she's on, but just trying to let Maggie know at that point in time, man, that I don't understand exactly what she's doing or going through, but I'm here and I truly love her. You know what I mean? That's right. And there's nothing else that I could have done at that point. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, and. In future held for me and her, we both wound up in the same unit just a little before I went to 22nd Tech Escort after I left Strike, and she had gone there as well. And her commander was actually one of my old soldiers who went to OCS and became an officer and became her commander. So it was like one interlinked world where we all knew each other without actually knowing that we knew each other.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course my last casualty from the 2nd Engineers was Corporal Nathan Karst from 2E. Another soldier that was under my command that I really didn't get to know because we were so dispersed at the time. I think I met him when they first came in and they were working with Widowmaker. Yep. And then we got dispersed after that when we did Dragon Strike and everybody was moving from the Highway 1 to Argandale River, man. Yep. As they would say, it was there or nothing, and Colonel Kandarian wasn't stopping until we got there.
No.
And so anyway, Nathan, again, as a corporal, he could have done a lot of different things. I mean, I don't know if you knew this about him, but he had a master's degree, and I think he had an MBA or something like that. Right.
Good
Lord. But he decided that, and I got this from his first sergeant. But he decided that he wanted to do something different. He wanted to take a different path, and he wanted to serve his country. And so I mean he was a little older coming in, but on all accounts, I mean just again another testament to the great Americans that we have that are willing to roll up their sleeves and be a part of something bigger than themselves, and just be a part of the unit and help in any way that they can. Yeah, so yeah, Nathan Kars he was my last under my command, that passed, or his KIA. And unfortunately, even after all of those events, right, you always have a few that are part of the 22, and I'd like to also say their names as well.
Yes.
Sergeant Donald Marine passed in 2016. Now, Sergeant Donald Marine, on a couple of deployments with him, he was, again, very quiet, right? He was undertoned, but when you weren't there, that dude was 100 miles an hour, right? Very, very intelligent, very smart. He was very tactical, right? If you needed a point man, or if you wanted a number one man in the 4-man stack, Sergeant Donald Marine was your guy, right? And he was definitely, again, a sapper to his heart. And then Staff Sergeant Mark Langley, who passed in 2019. Again, both of those, they were team leaders when I was the first sergeant in Bravo 307th. And anyway, Mark again was one of those guys that was very quiet, but he was one of those guys that thought, right? He's like, and he may not say anything, but he was always thinking, you're like, why are we doing it this way, right? and once you got done, he would be like, hey, what if we would have did it this way? He was like, dude, why didn't you say something? Like, well, I figured you guys had it all figured out. So, I mean, anyway, he frustrated a few platoon sergeants and squad leaders, but at the end of the day, again, two other fine Americans that we definitely want to recognize, and this weekend is really about that,
Exactly. And even though, like you said, they didn't lose their battle on the battlefield, but they kind of really did. They lost their way on the battlefield, and a lot of our brothers and sisters come home and they fight that darkness, but some of them, we can't tell that they're fighting that darkness because they don't show any signs on the outside. They look like everything's awesome, everything's gonna be great, and they're just like me and you talking now. And then all of a sudden, they're not here no more, and you're like, "What didn't I do to maybe help them, or was there a sign I missed?" And you get that survivor's guilt. But sometimes there is nothing you could have done, and it was just something that they had to do to maybe find peace and find their way to the other side.
Yeah, I agree. And you again, hindsight's 2020, right? I mean, you coulda, shoulda, woulda, and we all live with them. And I think you putting up those resources to say, hey, man, we're here. If you can't talk to me, talk to somebody, right? And I think we all struggle with that. I struggle with that. As far as how much do I tell my family of the stuff that we did? How much can I talk to somebody else that might understand because they either experienced it, or maybe they were a part of it, right? And it's a balance. Every one of us is like a different computer, right?
So,
we all have different processors,
right?
And then how we process what was done, what we did, what we said, what we didn't do, how we process all of those things really affect our behavior.
It definitely does. And like we were talking in the green room about data when we first both came on, about all that data that we do for work now, and that we're not even knowing that we're doing it. It's the same thing. We have so much data that's in our heads. And like you, from a squad leader, platoon sergeant, first sergeant, sergeant major, twice as a sergeant major deploying, you have so much data in your head of things you've seen, the things you witnessed, the things you heard while you're over there. How do we compartmentalize all that and still get to hang out with our 10 grandchildren or our kids and live a good life with Erica?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely walking a tightrope, right?
Yeah.
and for me, staying connected helps.
Yep.
Right. And for those that jump on my Facebook stuff, I mean, there's really not a lot of things that I post about other than family and other, soldiers, warriors that I communicate with and what they're doing and on purpose. I do that. But again, going back to what's my greatest accomplishment is seeing the success of others, right? And staying connected and understanding a little bit about what they're going through and how can I help them with the experiences that I've had. I went to this one sergeant major's office a while back. Anyway, he'd just taken over probably about 3 months, right? And I was like, hey, so how's it going? And he kind of looked at me like, I was like, okay, I was like, hey, I purposely left you alone for 3 months, right? I said, because you needed to figure some things out yourself. And I said, now that you've seen all the warts, right? What do you think, right? And then we had a conversation, right? And anyway, it's things like that help me stay connected. Again, I mentioned that I'm originally from Minnesota, met my wife here in North Carolina. And when it came time to retire, I mean, there wasn't, any other choice than coming back here to Fayetteville, Eastover, Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty, center of the universe, whatever you want to call it. Hoorah, kill, man! This was the place, right? And part of that is because of the community here, right? The other part of that is that I for me, I feel still connected, right? I can hear the planes overhead when they're getting ready to drop over there on Sicily drop zone or wherever they're going, right? I can hear the helicopters as they're doing their maneuvers, and God love the U.S. Marine Corps, those devil dogs, man. When those jokers come in, it's like rolling thunder, man. It's just artillery all night long, right? You get to hear the boom, boom, booms, right? And to some that might think like, man, that's a little bit. I don't know if I want to hear all that, right? Because of scar tissue. But to me, right, it's comforting,
Right.
to know that, hey, man, this stuff's still going on. We're still strong as an Army, and we have some great Americans out there getting after it.
And that's definitely the sounds of freedom. There's times that when outgoing was going, I'd sleep right through outgoing, but I would realize when things were incoming, like immediately, wait, that don't sound correct. I got to get up, get my boots on, and go. Even now, if I live like you live by the center of the universe there at Bragg, Liberty. I live at the universe here at the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault, Clarksville, Tennessee, at Fort Campbell, and hearing those helicopters flying over and the sounds of freedom of those flying over, and then the guns at night and working on base and being able to see Joe and Josephine going through the things they go through now, and being able to go home at night after laughing at them with their what they perceive as problems, and
Right.
when they come home, it helps me to keep moving forward as well.
Yeah, it's super important, and of course, I hear from some of my people, as far as, hey, how do you separate, Veterans Day and Memorial Day, and veterans for us, Memorial Day is for our fallen brothers and sisters,
Right.
And then how do you react when somebody says, Happy Memorial Day, right? I was like, well, I guess I say thank you, but I said, and I was talking to him. I was like, well, to me, it's the same as people that say thank you for your service, right? And I say it in that manner because in some cases they know, but in most cases they don't know, right? They don't know exactly what that really means, and it's how could they? Right. So I can't fault them per se because they don't know, and I'm of course being cordial, polite, say thank you. In my opinion, right? My opinion only. Harold A 6925. My opinion only. Is that I would want them to say thank you for your commitment and dedication to the defense of our nation. Right. That to me is more appropriate. Right. Because it's not thanking me for my service, is thanking me for the commitment and dedication that I gave, right?
Right.
And so when I thank somebody, that's how I thank them. I say, hey man, thanks for your service and dedication, or it's not service, but thank you for your dedication and commitment to the defense of our nation, right? Because you did the do, man, right? And I appreciate it, and I truly do. And even those that are in now, still doing the do, man. It's hoorah, kill, man. They have different problems, right?
Yes.
Problem sets, or mission sets, or however you want to call it.
Yes,
but
they
at
do.
the end of the day, it's what is the Army for? It's
Right.
to win the nation's wars.
Exactly.
Bottom line, up front, period, stop.
Yep. Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And when I have a run in with maybe our brothers from maybe pre-Desert Storm, because Desert Storm is kind of a iffy place for me. It's a 6-day war that guys really cry about, but 6 days in Desert Storm, I still give them some props. I thank them for what they did then. But it's
I was there, man. It was awesome. I loved it.
It's the dudes from Vietnam that I really thank them for what they went through and all that, because they really paved the way for our generation. Them and the Korean War veterans, they paved the way for everything we have now, and the suffering they did in those hills in Vietnam and the mountains of Korea made what we do now look like kids play. And they look at us, oh, it's so hard for you, but we look back at them and say, thank God we don't fight like you do, and thank you for everything you did for us.
Absolutely, man. And again, you think about the equipment, right?
Right.
What they had to do what they did, and what we had to do what we did, so on and so forth. And technology kept up, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's a tremendous. And then even when you think back to the Greatest Generation in World War II, and those folks, man, and when you look at man, when you look at what they had to accomplish their mission, we're like, how in the heck?
How did we make it off the beach?
You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? They didn't have Nokias, man? They didn't call somebody? I mean, what's the deal?
How'd they get the new Bangalores up there to the guys that got killed? Oh, man.
Well, hey, funny thing about those, they're the same.
Yeah.
From World War II to now, they're the same. The Bangalore's in, they're the same.
It's probably still the same last name Sapper that's coming up there, too. Sergeant Ankins and Specialist Smith running up at the Bangalore.
That's right. And hey, that drill hasn't changed either. Number 1 man, number 2 man, number 3 man, right?
I'm running, you're down, go. And it still does the same job. So it's outstanding to watch the evolution, especially now that we're both retired. And where we both sit, you can see the evolution keep moving. The train keeps moving without us, and it's going to keep moving without the generation that's going now. And as long as we stay as a relevant country, it'll keep moving that way.
Yeah, I mean that's the reason why they made that song, right? for the Army, right? It keeps moving along.
Rolling along.
Absolutely. Whether we're on a train or off the train, it doesn't really matter. But the thing is that, again, as I talked to you earlier, every leader that's listening, every soldier, every officer that's listening, your fingerprints are on the Army. They're on those units, whether you think so or whether you don't. There's a difference between impact and influence.
Yep.
Right? Impact is something that happens probably in a smaller group. I can impact like my squad or my platoon or my company, right? Something like that. But influence is much greater because it's like a ripple, man. It keeps going out, and out because, what you did for somebody, they did for somebody, they're going to do for somebody, and it keeps growing. That's influence, and it's so much greater. And just the simplest of acts, right? Are the things that continue to ripple out.
It definitely does. And when you look at the, I guess, equating it like that, you can see the drop of water hitting a calm water. And that's you when you were that young team leader and you have the 4 dudes behind you in your team, or 5 dudes, if you were lucky, that water dropped. And those 5 dudes now, when you retired, maybe 3 of them stayed in that long and kept moving forward. And their ripples keep going grower, but their ripples are also your ripples. And that wave just gets bigger and bigger, like a tsunami kind of. And by the time they all retire, you still have dudes that know things that you taught that first squad, that first team. And that tradition's still growing.
It's amazing. It really is, and humbling. Don't get, I mean, like I said, I detest talking about myself, man. But people insist on it, right? So anyway. The Sergeant Major of 15th Engineers, right, in Germany, Command Sergeant Major John Atkinson. Anyway, he's he's going to the gym, right, with a group of leaders, and he's like, this first sergeant, because he texted me when this happened. So this first sergeant was on his way in there. You know, they're all getting ready to smoke themselves, and he said, the first sergeant yells out, my first command sergeant major used to say, "Hoorah, kill!" Right? And he was like, "Wait a minute, what? Are you talking about Command Sergeant Major Reynolds?" He's like, "Yeah." And he was just like, "Man, he was a private in the Raptor Battalion."
Oh,
right?
wow.
And now he's a first sergeant. And he still remembers that.
That's outstanding. Private in Raptor. So that's not even that long ago when he's a first sergeant now. So that's good.
That's awesome, right? And
Yeah.
so anyway, and he's like, you know what the best thing about that? He texted me back. He's like, you know what the best thing about that was? I was like, no. He said, remember at the best Sapper competition, I met Lieutenant Kicklighter, and she's a phenomenal Sapper, man. And I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah. She was there, and she was like, there's no way he's talking about the same guy I met at the best Sapper competition. Yep. She, like I said, they did great. Kicklighter is one of those sappers that's going to be a great leader, I think, in our regiment. She was the Distinguished Honor Grad in Ranger School, and then she was the Distinguished Honor Grad at Sapper Leader course as well.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, man, she's a monster.
Jake asked, was Atkinson Lieutenant Colonel Semonites Command Sergeant Major?
No, not that one.
Not that one. Okay.
No, and I probably now that I live in North Carolina, I have a Southern draw. Not the Minnesota. Yeah, sure, you betcha, don't you know?
Scored.
But yeah, most people know John as AK, Command Sergeant Major AK.
Okay. Outstanding. Yeah, I thought you'd bring up 2012 when we were both advisors over there, and like I talked about, you with the minigun, you and Sergeant Colonel Williams. We lost a pretty good leader there to Sergeant Major Kevin Griffin.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a shocking day, and I think a day that you guys barely missed being in that actual situation. You and Colonel Williams, Buck, just due to lack of flights that day or something. And he was the dude. When I got wounded, he came in to see me and said, "Hey, you got the $1 million wound." I said, "What are you talking about, Sergeant Major? I didn't get shot in the ass." He said, "Yeah, but you get free license plates for life, bro. You good?" I said, "Well, hell, thanks."
Yeah, and I was going to, but I'm glad you brought him up. So me and Sergeant Major, he had this how would I put it? A healthy respect, somewhat, for the 101st, and here's what I mean by that. The very first thing he talked to me about when I met him was, "Hey, we're not gonna have any black hearts going on around here, right?" Because he read the book, right? And I was like, "You know what, Sergeant Major? I hear you." I said those days are long gone. I was like, you know, the organization in which is a part of your brigade right now is top-notch leadership. And I said, and if they're not, I said, you can come find me and I'll do 1,000,000 push-ups. He started laughing after that. He's a really good guy. But he was a no-nonsense cat, though, you know?
Yeah.
And I appreciated that from him. I really did. He's like, hey, if I was jacking it up, he'd tell me I jacked it up, right? He didn't have to. He's like, hey, man, Reynolds, fix yourself. Hey, roger that, Sergeant Major. Fixing myself now, you know? And that was awesome that he – but he did that because he cared. You know what I'm saying? If he didn't care, he wouldn't. He's like, hey, you know what? Reynolds is jacking it up, but hey, man, he'll figure it out. But he never did. If I was doing something, he made sure that, hey, Reynolds, just go a little left. Roger, got it.
Get that azimuth right. Get that azimuth correct here. Come on, azimuth correction. You got this. And I think every interaction I had with him, it was positive. Just like you said, he told you what you need to hear, what he wanted you to do without even you knowing it at that time, minus the license plate thing. But he always had great advice for us when we were going on our first patrol with his guys, with Chosen. We were going out and working with the Afghan National Army because at that time, you know, green on blue is huge. And he always wanted us to maintain our professionalism and everything like that. And him and Flo Groberg, they would fly in with the colonel, and I'd stand outside with Flo because we were the outsiders to the insider speeches in there, and we just joke around. And then of course the incidents. He'll always be a part of my memories and a lot of great mentoring sessions with him as well.
No, absolutely, and that it was just such a different deployment, right?
Yeah.
Especially for us and being advisors and the thing about the military, the Army, it's pretty cyclic. You know what I mean? Things that are old become new again, right? It just kind of goes around and around. Like advising wasn't anything new, like you were talking about. Vietnam did it, and you can go all the way back to Roman times. They had advisors. Yeah. I mean, so it's nothing new per se, but it was just the way it was implemented, right? And now that we have the SFACs and the SFABs doing that continued mission, if you will, but for us, right? I mean, when you get paired to do a mission, right, for what we were doing, it doesn't nothing really prepares you. Even going to Tigerland, right? Going down to JRTC and going through that. Anyway, so me and Colonel Williams, right? We were with the National Police.
Right.
What do we know about being police, right? Right? And I'm saying it in that manner because obviously I didn't know anything. But the one thing that I think in most military careers, leaders lead, right? They don't know how to really do anything else, right? They just solve problems, right? That's what they do. I mean, when people talk to you, Rich, in your mind, you're figuring out how to solve the problem.
Yep.
They didn't even ask you hey, I need help. They're just talking to you, and you're like, man, this guy needs to do this and needs to do that. Talk with this person over here, right? Because that's what leaders do, right? So anyway, that skill set is really what they needed, because they needed that leaders to help them solve some problems, or even what we perceived as problems, to make sure that their organizations were running, right? So as a first sergeant, right, just talking as a first sergeant, the one thing that every first sergeant needs to do is run administrations, right? They run, make sure that the evaluations are in on time, the awards are in on, right? Just first sergeant stuff, right?
Right.
And in that vein, it doesn't matter if you're an MI first sergeant or if you're maintenance, right? Because that's what we had when we deployed in 2010. Remember?
Oh yeah.
He was a first sergeant, and I told him, I just need a first sergeant, right? I don't need you to be an MI, guru. That's what we got platoon sergeants for. Just get us through the administrative stuff, right? Processes, enforce discipline. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Just be a first sergeant. Man, that company did a 180 in theater, right? And then when Ivankovich came in, man, that company was moving.
Oh yeah, First Sergeant Hollingsworth, great dude. Yeah.
Oh, Benjamin.
Awesome. Him and First Sergeant Bright worked on the dual Micklick trailer, I believe. Yeah,
yes. That's right.
Working nights with them guys, the spotlights on, making sure no one can see you. And listen to them curse at things when they're trying to screw it in there. It was great watching that work.
Yep. Awesome.
So it's been great chat with you, catching up. Very quick 53 minutes, obviously. If you can give advice to that young man or woman that's thinking about joining our great military, what would that be?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's still a noble profession, right? And it is a profession. It isn't a job. It isn't a duty per se. It is a profession. And if it's something that they're interested in, or something that they just want to take a look at, I would encourage them to at least try it, right? And that's what I did, right? I'm one of those people, like 1,000 of them that right? I'm only going to do 3 years and 4 years and I'm getting out, right? So 4 years came, and I'm like, man, I don't really know what to do, so I'm gonna re-enlist, right? So after this, though, I'm out, and then I'm like, man, I'm actually pretty good at this, so let me just keep going, right? So anyway, I would say, hey, one, never never close any windows, right? Keep all your options open. And if the military, and I say military because it doesn't have to be the Army, but the military has great programs in all different capacities that you can gain experience that will help you when you decide to leave the military or the service and do something else. But it is definitely an option, and I would say that it is a rewarding profession.
100%, 100%. If you don't get something out of this profession, something's wrong with you, I believe. And I remember when I did my retirement ceremony here at Campbell, and the CG asked me, he said, "So what are you going to do with your life now?" So I said, "I got to get an adult job because I've had fun for 22 years being a soldier. It's been like
Right.
playing Army for 22 years, like I did growing up playing G.I. Joe and stuff. So I was doing a kid's game for 22 years. Now I got to get a real job." And he was dumbfounded. He's like, "What?" I said, "That's exactly what this is." And now I'm doing the same thing now, just wearing khakis. So
Right, exactly right. I'm
yeah.
with you there. I'm with you there.
So like I said, this has been great catching up with you. Anytime you want to come back on, you're always welcome. This has been awesome, and you did leave a lot of ripples, and I'm sure those ripples will keep coming back, and I'll still see you posting pictures like you did with your former LT, who's now just took over the brigade as brigade commander. That's an awesome picture. Awesome picture I've seen there. And like I told you in the green room, watching Whammy take over a company, that was awesome for me as well. Maggie just chimed in, no questions, but just thank you for always doing the same thing you always asked of me. I'm thankful for both of you. I survived because of the love you two contributed, showing me after that deployment and still to this very day. So
Yeah,
you're
wow.
welcome, Maggie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. An honor, really. And Rich, just because it wouldn't be right if I didn't leave a quote. I mean, because that's how these speech things go, right? So I have two. First one is for the military, right? Stormin Norman General Schwarzkopf, right? He said that leadership is a potent mix of character, right, and tactics, or really strategy, right?
Strategy.
But he said, if you have to be without one, be without strategy, right? So it is about character. It is about how you treat people, right? How you do your business, and not that everybody's watching, because it shouldn't matter if they're watching or not. How you do what you do matters. And then my second quote is from Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Essential Habits for Successful People. And I love this quote. It said, "Most people listen with the intent to reply and not the intent to understand." Right? So imagine if people would listen with the intent to understand, how different that conversation would be. And every time I read or hear that quote, I think about like the ops meetings, right? So everybody's just trying to, no, that's not what happened. No. But anyway, those are the two quotes that mean something to me, and I hope it means something to all your listeners.
Outstanding. Misfit Nation, I hope you wrote both those down. And I like to say, listen to hear, not to speak. That goes right along with that same quote. And I actually had that on my whiteboard behind my desk here with ET2RC for probably over a year, because of a person in my office that would never listen to you. He would just want to jump in and say something. So I just put it on my board, and it never soaked in, but God bless him. It'll happen someday. But again, thank you for coming on. Give Erica a big hug for us, for me and Gwen, and keep doing all the great things you do.
I appreciate it, and same, man. Much love to all of Team LaMonica, right? And of course, those of you out there on Misfit Nation, know that you matter, right? And you make our lives better. And so thank you.
Yeah. Outstanding. Have a good night.
Thank you. You do the same, brother.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
He raised his right hand, promised to defend his homeland. Enemies foreign and unknown. When will he be home? Tap, tap, tap. The plane rises into the sky. Friends and family wave goodbye. Will we get to see him again? For now, we have to remember when. Tap, tap, tap. Weeks go by, and he's maturing fast. Gunshots and roadside blasts. Head is on a swivel, trying not to be next. Doing everything he can, risking his neck. Tap, tap, tap. One friend, 2 friends, and another one lost. He definitely knows the cost. A raid is coming, getting ready. Weapon is clean and he is steady. Tap, tap, tap. It's go time, patrol moves out. Some head west, he has no doubts. His thoughts are on the mission, no time for fantasy or wishing. Tap, tap, tap. 4-man stack at each door. Adrenaline pumps, time for war. Kick it in, shots ring out. A flash, a bang, and lights go out. Tap, tap, tap. His brothers do what they are trained for. Evacuate to a helicopter that flies north. They hope for a good outcome. Stay focused on the job to be done. Tap, tap, tap. On behalf of a grateful nation, we regret to inform you that your son, your daughter, is not coming home. The tap at the door is a sound loved ones of those serving fear the most. Remember those who have gone and the ones they left behind on this day. Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.